Hi everyone, it's Bonique from ButterBeeScraps and I'm back for week 6 of our mini album tutorial series. Before I get started though, I just wanted to thank everybody who took the time to respond to my question last week. I asked it on my blog, on my YouTube, and I also even sent out an email to my email subscribers asking about the online mini album class. So I really appreciate all the feedback. Results are in and I am going to hold the class. I'm just going to have a very few limited spots to start with, see how it goes. So yeah, watch for that coming down the pipe. The next thing is I've decided to do things a little bit differently this week with the tutorial, hoping that it works a little bit better. I'm hoping not to speed it up too terribly much, and I've done a fair amount of preparation for this week's tutorial. So, without further ado, let's get to the spread. This is the spread that I said we would be doing this week. Well, I opted to keep the inside of these flaps the same as last time with the picture mats. So I already cut and matted these. You saw me do it 2 weeks ago. I figured you didn't need to see me do it again. Again, for this pocket page, I decided to do the same thing. I only used different style brads there. I'm actually running out of the square ones, so eek. And then over on this page, I opted to do the picture mat as well. And you can see here, I've already put a magnet in there as well. So we're basically going to be doing 3 pages today. This is the one we're going to start with. And I've opted to put a circle card on this page. But it's a modified circle card because it's not going to look like a circle. So I've already constructed most of it. What you need to do is cut a piece of black cardstock 4 3/4 by 4 3/4 inches, so you'll have a nice square. You then need 4 rectangular pieces of black cardstock. They all have to be 4 3/4 inches wide, and I would cut them to a good 4 inches. And then what you do is you use a decorative die on the edge. I opted for the Tim Holtz, I think this is the Baroque die. I'm not sure, but I'll have a list of all the tools that I used over on my blog. And there will be a link in the description box below. So once you have your 4 sides cut, you need to, now this one's already cut, but you need to put your paper in so that the edge of your I can't speak. The edge of your paper, so the edge of the die cut is at 3 inches. Cut it off. And then you'll want to score this. Now I put it in my scoreboard this way. And because, hello, so you got to make sure this flat edge up here is flat against the top. The edge on the left is on the left. And you want to score at 2 3/8 inches. Of course, you fold this over and burnish. Sorry guys, I got something in my throat. And this is what's going to create your flaps on all 4 sides. I also, before I glue this on, cut these off at an angle. Try to go at least 45 inches, because then they won't interfere with the next one. As you can see here, like this one overlapped, which is not the end of the world, but I opt to glue this on before I mat it. And I'm going to use my fabric tack. Oh my goodness, I do this almost every time. This stuff is so stringy. And I always fold it over the edge because I want to make sure that there's generous room for the flap to fold over. I don't want it to bind in that crease there. And you know why I love fabric tack, because it wipes right off any of that stuff that oozes out, and you see like pretty much no residue on your paper. Okay, now for these guys. I cut these to 4.5 inches wide. I did the same die cut. You can see, I mean, it's not a perfect 1/8 of an inch all the way around, but I'm totally okay with the way it turned out. So 4.5 inches wide. Cut the edge, and then I cut them to 2 and let me measure before I tell you. Yeah, 2 1/8 inch. So right from this tip to here is 2 1/8 inches. You can see I cut the corners there, or rounded the corners, and then I distressed the edges with my paper distressor. Basically, the thinking I'm using is if it's glued down, I distress the edges. For the tags and stuff, I don't. So if you're wondering, well, when is she distressing the edges and when is she not? Because I know I've been changing it up a lot. That's kind of the theory I'm using as I go along. This piece here, the square in the bottom, is 4.5 by 4.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and put these guys on here. Okay, so I added my last couple of mats. Now before I glue this down, I just want to make sure this works. Yay! So that's kind of what we're going for. So you can open this up and you could put picture in here, or you can even add extra loose tags in there, whatever you like. I am just going to leave it like that. And when I glue this sucker down, I'm going to do something similar to the last time. I'm going to create a pocket, but I'm thinking this sucker is going to be heavy if I glue it down now. Oh, what the hey. I'm going for it. So I'm just going to glue on 3 edges. It's important that you use glue, because if you use score tape, whatever tags you put in behind are going to get stuck on the edges. I know you're wondering, why did I leave 1/3 of it open? Why didn't I center that? Well, because I think this would look awkward in the center, and I put together, yay, see, I told you I was prepared. I put together a little bit of metal here that I'm going to stack together to create a cool little border on the side. Just helps fill the page, like so. And I even have a brad to put in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this onto the page. Actually, before I glue that onto the page, guys, I'm going to put my tape on the back. And I should have done it before putting the circle card on, because the brad is going to be like in the middle here, away from the tape. So I'm not worried about putting tape over top of that. Alrighty, I'm just gonna let this sit for a few minutes at the side. Let the glue set a little bit before I put the brad through, because I don't want to be taking this apart. And I don't know if you noticed, but these two leaves here, I kept them separated a little bit so that there would be space to put a brad in between them. You can see there's a little bit of glue that leaked out behind this silver gear, but that's okay. I'm gonna let it sit for a couple minutes and then you can pull that stuff right off and it looks nice and clean. Okay, so the next page I'm gonna work on is this guy right here. And I decided that I was going to do a belly band on this page. And because I used the Tim Holtz Hello measuring tape on one of the first pages I did, I opted to use it again because although I kind of do one page at a time and I'm doing this over several weeks, I am trying to be consistent throughout the album. You do need those elements that repeat themselves, otherwise it's not going to make as much sense. So I thought the one looked kind of awkward, so I opted to do two pieces side by side, and I'm going to put like a little bit of a gap between them. So I'm just eyeballing this, but you can see I'm not going in the center of the page. I'm using that rule of thirds, kind of trying to break the page up. I think I'm happy with that placement, so I'm just going to turn this over. I don't need as much there. And I am using glue for this. Got this, and then I was just gonna layer some gears here and do something a little bit different over here. You've seen me using the brads a lot. I'm just squeezing. There's a bit of a gap. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's trying to close that gap at the back of the brad so it sits nice and flat on the table or on the page. So I'm just going to do this kind of thing. I'm going to glue the arrow there. I'm going to put a brad right through the end, and then I'm going to put another small brad. These are 1/8 inch brads here, and I don't want fabric tack. I want E6000. Actually, you know what? Rather than use that glue, I'm going to use this, what is this stuff? Gem tack. I use it for all my rhinestones, and it's in this, I got this with my Crystal Ninja, and it's got a super fine metal tip on it. I know there's like glitter glue or whatever that you can get as well. I've heard that stuff is amazing. I should put a brad through this one here. I think I'm going to, but in order to do that, you probably saw me do this before, I have to ream out the center of this gear because it's not big enough to fit a brad. Okay, so I used my bead reamer to ream out the center of this gear so that I could fit this brad through it. careful here. You do not want to glue that gear to the paper behind. I'm just going to let that sit before I put that brad in, and we're going to come back to this first page actually. I'm just going to pick out some of this glue with my paper piercer. You can see how it pulls right out of there. So anything that oozes out with this E6000 is pretty easy to clean up. Gives you a nice, clean, finished edge. Now we're going to work on this third and final spread. And what I've opted to do here is I'm going to actually create this cool metal border along the bottom to tuck a tag into. Before I get started, I think I'm going to put the tape on the back though. So what I'm going to do is there are little holes in the ends of these. So I'm basically going to try to line up those holes. And I'm going to stick brads through there. And then I'm going to put this cabochon setting on the top there with this cool glass cabochon. And then I'm going to finish off with these gears on the side. And then we'll leave the top bit open so that you can actually tuck a tag in there. So I think what I'm going to do, because it would be very difficult to glue these down and line up these holes here, I'm actually going to stick the brads through these holes first, and I will go right through the paper on the ends. I always like to attach things to the paper if I can. So I think I'm going to use copper brads just because of the little splash of copper gear there. I don't know if these will fit through the holes. No, I'm going to have to ream these out. Okay, so I finished reaming out the 2 holes on each end of these filigrees on all 3 of them. And I am just going to, I'm layering the middle one over top of the 2 sides. I don't think it would really matter that much, you're not going to notice. I think you could either layer the 2 sides over the center or vice versa, but so now you have this cool long border strip. And I am going to glue just the bottom half. And I like these filigrees because the center here is pretty solid, so you get a nice good, and there's a good solid section in there, so there's lots to glue to. let this border, the glue, kind of dry for a bit before I try to put these on. Plus you can see there's more glue oozing out from those gears that has to be cleaned up once it's dried for a bit. So I'm gonna pause the film, finish everything up. I mean, you don't need to see me glue these onto the border. You know, put the brad in this other page and I'll put them on and I'll come back and show you what everything looks like. Okay, so I'm done adhering everything down. So this is the first page we finished with the circle card, and I just stuck a couple of these Tim Holtz tags behind after distressing the edges, of course, or I just inked the edges. Put the tag in the end here. So when you open this up, you see the picture mat, you see this belly band, and I created a mat to slide in underneath. This mat actually measures 6.5 by 4.5 inches, and then the pattern paper is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, so you can just stick a standard 4x6 photo on there. I really like how that arrow looks. I think it's cute. And then there's this page where we made our border along the bottom. This picture mat is the same size as the other one, 6.5 by 4.5, matted with a 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 mat. And this here is just another Tim Holtz tag. Flip this open, you've got your picture mat, and of course your pocket with this tag that we finished way back on week 2. Yeah, something like that. So there you go. There you have it. That is the spread for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Please let me know what you thought of this tutorial today, because I know it's a little bit different than what we've been doing. If you'd rather see, you know, the full-on right from start to finish sped up, let me know. Thanks a lot and have a great week. Bye-bye.